Hello, my name is Marty Windle and welcome to another episode of the SPL Guru podcast. What we're going to look at is another company, another real life organization, and we're going to apply our SPL theories to a real life company. So this should help you in your examination. If you're doing the case study in December 2025, this may also help you because today what we're going to do is to look at the Hilton Hotel chain. We're going to apply some of the risk management part of the SPL syllabus to the Hilton Hotel chain. Now, in the SPL syllabus, we've got this concept called the COSO framework. What I'm going to do is zoom into two elements of that COSO framework: risk assessment and risk control. Now, risk assessment is where we prioritize a risk. We identify the risk first, and then we prioritize the risk. This is because some risks will be high priority and require a lot of attention. Some risks will be lower priority where we can maybe accept. So the first thing we're going to look at is assess the risk. And this means two elements, two areas we're going to look at. The first one is what is the probability, and the second one is what is the impact of the risk. What is the probability of the risk occurring and how will it have an impact on the organization? The second part of the COSO framework we're going to look at is risk control, and we're going to use the TARA risk management strategies: transfer, avoid, reduce, and accept. So we're going to look at a five-star hotel, which is the Hilton Hotel. This was founded by Conrad Hilton in 1919 after he purchased his first hotel in Texas. It became a national and then an international hotel chain in the following decades. Hilton's known as being the first hotel to be listed in the New York Stock Exchange. Also, it's famous for its innovations, its multi-hotel reservation system, and being the first airport hotel in the world. So I'm going to look at 5 specific risks that you might find in a hotel. I'm going to try to focus on the assessment of those risks and then look at possible risk management strategies we're going to use. First one is going to be the fire safety risk. Second one is going to be guest security. The third one is going to be food safety. The fourth one is going to be equipment failure. And the fifth one is going to be natural disasters. So let's start off with the first risk, fire safety. It's going to be a major worry or major concern for the hotel manager. If we have a fire at the hotel, the impact is going to be extreme and significant. Most importantly, loss of life. You've got multi-million dollars worth of damage to the hotel closure, and worst of all, long-term reputational damage to the brand. So the risk managers, they're always going to try to keep this risk as low as possible in the hotel. They're going to try to reduce the probability as much as possible. How do they do that? They use a number of the TARA strategies. Every Hilton hotel must meet fire, life, and safety brand standards. So what they do is use technology, automatic sprinklers, smoke detectors in all rooms. Back of house spaces are clearly illuminated with unobstructed escape routes. Staff complete mandatory fire safety training and have regular live drills several times a year. And engineering firms try to use planned preventative maintenance on all fire safety systems. The hotel also may want to avoid certain high-risk items like open flame heaters on terraces, and may wish to ban things like candles in people's rooms. So this reduction strategy has worked in the past. I'm going to give you an example from the Hilton Los Angeles Hotel. They had a kitchen fire in 2023, but it was swiftly contained due to staff preparedness, automatic fire doors. They limited the impact of that fire to a single room and did not have any casualties. It reflects Hilton's strong commitment to mitigating impact through training and effective infrastructure. Now, if you're at a 5-star hotel like the Hilton Hotel, you're going to have a lot of VIPs and corporate leaders potentially staying at your hotel. And therefore, guest security is a priority. You want to make sure there's no unauthorized access, harassment of the guests, and you may be worried about certain issues such as theft. You want to try to mitigate and reduce these risks as much as possible. Once again, you can turn to your tower strategies. We can use reduction strategies, keycard access controls for guest floors. Elevators require special keys to reach certain levels in the hotel. Very high definition CCTV with blind spot analysis to cover lobbies, corridors, but also the back of the hotel, which is also a risky area. These are monitored 24/7 by trained security staff. In addition, the front desk and concierge teams are trained to recognize suspicious behavior and handle aggressive guests so that any incident can be quickly contained. They may wish to do some risk avoid strategies. They may feel that if the risk is too high, they may decline certain events if they cannot guarantee total security for the guests. This may involve refusing to host a controversial political rally, and they will be willing to give up the revenue if they feel they cannot have effective security and control for their guests. Now, just to give you an example, when there was a diplomatic summit at the London Hilton Park Lane Hotel, they had enhanced security and guest screening. They even employed temporary metal detectors within the hotel. The VIP guests also had a panic button installed in their room. If they were worried about anything, they could press that button, the security team would arrive. Now, in a hotel, you're going to serve a lot of food, so your big concern is food safety. What can go wrong? Well, the biggest worry with all the hundreds of breakfasts and banquets you're serving in the hotel is food safety, food poisoning. Now, the impact may be to affect a number of guests. Guest illness is always a concern, but you may also face guest illness is also a concern, but you also may face lawsuits from guests who have had food poisoning. So what can we do to try to manage this risk effectively? Once again, we turn to our TARA strategies. They implement hazard analysis and critical control points in the hotel. They've got things like temperature logs for cooking, holding, and cooling food, a clear separation of raw and cooked food in the kitchen, and color-coded chopping boards and utensils. This is combined with regular internal audit controls to check compliance and external inspections from accredited hygiene consultants. They could avoid some of the risk by excluding very high-risk items such as raw shellfish or meat which is uncooked, such as steak tartare. They may want to take those high-risk items off the menu to avoid any risk. To give you an example about Hilton, in Hilton Singapore, they use smart sensors in refrigerators to detect temperature dips, allowing a swift disposal of potentially unsafe food items, preventing any guest harm. Risk 4 is equipment failure. Now, one of the big pieces of equipment you're worried about in a hotel is going to be the elevator. The ultimate nightmare is to have guests trapped in an elevator which is not working. Equipment failure is what you're worried about. Now, if it's other elements in the hotel like a malfunctioning TV, that is not going to have a high impact, but things like elevators will have a high impact. What are we going to do about the major risks? Again, reduction strategies, computerized maintenance management systems, scheduled preventative maintenance is one of the key controls you're going to use in the hotel. In terms of electricity, backup generators is also something you might consider. Multiple elevators, so the failure of one will not lead to the failure of all and cripple operations. All engineers are trained and certified by Hilton, and complex tasks are contracted to manufacturing approved technicians. So they're going to have some transfer of risk for the complex issues. We also have a policy in Hilton that once a piece of equipment has reached its useful life, they should have a full replacement rather than continuous patch repairs in order to avoid critical incident failures. Now, in the New York Hilton, where the elevator broke down, They used a rapid response team, so it was back working within hours, minimizing guest inconvenience and demonstrating effective risk reduction. Risk number 5 is natural disasters. If your hotel is located in an earthquake zone, if it's on the seaside where you've got a risk of flooding, if it's near a river, these are all natural disasters which you can't really control well. So you've always got to look at how you're going to manage these risks. Now, the probability will depend on obviously location, but also seasonal factors such as the time of year. What you can do is to try to have a clear emergency response plan. You can't prevent an earthquake from happening, but you can have a clear emergency response plan, regular drills, fire, evacuation, and shelter-in-place drills. You need to ensure all staff know exactly what to do, even at 3 a.m. in the morning on a fully booked night. You also may wish to transfer some of the risk of property damage to insurance companies. So during the 2024 Bangkok floods, Hilton was managed to evacuate their guests ahead of the storms, coordinated shelter and support, and managed reimbursements professionally. So they managed to this is a risk you cannot control, so you've got to accept it to a certain degree, but you can mitigate the impact of the risk to a certain level as well. So those are elements of the COSO framework, and that might be important for you in your examination. So what you've got to do is to take those ideas and concepts and apply them in the exam, the risk assessment and the risk management strategies. My name is Marty Windle. If you want help with your exam, please go to my website, www.splguru.com. I'd also ask you to like and subscribe to this podcast and tell me in a comment if you like the podcast. This will help me to increase visibility. If you need free stuff, a scholarship, and free material, also go to www.splguru.com. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Marty Windle, the SPL Guru, and good luck in your exam.